The smell of a dirty bathroom, not ideal. And imagine breathing that odor 5 days a week while at work. Well, that's the environment a group of Douglas County employees must endure. In a First Alert 6 investigation, Mike McKnight shows us where and why there's a health concern.
In an office below the Douglas County Jail, process server Cliff Hamilton detects an odor that he believes is escaping from cells above the ceiling.
Just the I haven't taken care of my bathroom smell when you come in here, plus with the mixture of the wet drywall.
The Douglas County Sheriff's Support Services Bureau is in a space underneath a corner of the jail where criminal warrants and civil papers are processed.
When the sheriff talks about Emergency Response Unit, or ESU, you think of a ballistic shield. But in this office, it means an umbrella, a bucket.
Leaks from the ceiling have been common. So important paperwork and computers need protection.
Public properties will come over and hang them as a way to keep the water from falling on computers, falling on electronics. It goes into this bucket.
An air filter machine is an attempt at odor reduction, and Lieutenant Stan Benke says air fresheners provide some relief.
Yeah, it definitely helps out, but it just masks an odor. It doesn't solve the problem.
In several parts of the office, Douglas County building maintenance staff installed plastic tubing that runs from the ceiling down and drains into buckets.
We don't know what it is. It's yellow-brownish liquid.
Sheriff Aaron Hansen plans to have the liquid tested because he's concerned about a possible health effect on staff.
They shouldn't have yellow and brown water trickling through hoses from inmate cells down to their office environment. It's inappropriate, and I don't think it's healthy.
Stopping the leaks above the office is a priority for Douglas County Commissioner Mike Friend.
Well, the plan is to seal those floors to make sure that water, liquid, anything of that nature, anything that could seep through a floor like that is going to be caught.
Friend estimates a cost of about $40,000 to bring in a contractor's seal team, but he says the county employees deserve more.
Fix it first, and then ultimately move these folks out of there.
But where to move and the cost still needs to be determined. So until the floors above them are sealed, the sheriff's staff must deal with the capture of liquid yet to be identified.
It's mystery goo, and it's gross.
Near 16th and Leavenworth, Mike McKnight, First Alert 6.
Where the water's coming from, because it's...
Yeah, I think the sheriff said it best. Meantime, the director of Douglas County Corrections says inmates flooding cells by plugging toilets is not uncommon in jails. He says corrections officers intervene as quickly as possible to limit the impact. He says his staff is also affected by those incidents. Douglas County Commissioner Friend hopes that work on sealing the jail floor can be done in a couple of months.